Welcome to my channel, Northwest Elite Spirit. I'm Coach Brian, and today I'd like to share with you a series I put together called Walking in a Warrior's Garden. It's a balance, footwork, and strength routine I put together based on martial arts footwork, but for day-to-day living, which will also help you in your sports and martial arts. We're going to start off with basic horse stance. There's 3 types of horse stances that we're going to be going through. We're going to go through regular horse stance, which is feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent. You don't want your hips like tilted forward, and you don't want them tilted back. You want them parallel with the floor. You want your chin parallel with the floor, not looking up, falling backwards, and not slouched over, breaking down. You want your chest kind of out, but not so puffed out it's exaggerated. And one thing we can do to help us get there is to go into that old Kung Fu stance and then just relax the shoulders down. Again, that Kung Fu stance, and relax the shoulders down. We are going to keep our weight in our center or our core, which we can imagine is about 3 finger widths down from our belly button and about 3 finger widths into our core. We're going to imagine centering our weight there. So we have the shoulder width horse stance. We have the wide horse stance. Again, wide horse stance, we're not breaking down, we're not leaning too far back. We're centered right there in our core. And then we have skinny horse stance. Again, knees slightly bent, weight in the core, chin parallel with the floor, hips parallel with the floor. Our first movement is fairly easy. We're going to go from normal horse stance out to wide horse stance by twisting our feet out and then come back in to skinny horse, out, and we can do that about 5 times. So once we've gotten our horse stance down, we go sideways and we can walk our feet out, get a wide or a shoulder width horse stance, and if we turn sideways, we will be in forward stance or fighting stance or boxing stance. If this were boxing, I'd have my hands up and my chin tucked, but we're just doing this for regular day-to-day life, so we don't have to do that. But we are going to do a boxer shuffle. And the boxer shuffle, whichever foot or whichever direction you're going, that's the foot that you move first. So if I'm going forward, I move my front foot forward first, then just come up behind it with another foot. Then we can do sets of 3. I'm going to put my hands up just because that's how I'm used to doing this one. And so even if we're going backwards, it's the same. A back foot first. If we're going to the left, we can do left foot first. And if we're going to the right, we do right foot first. And that's another one we're going to do about 5 times. Front, back, side, side. Another simple boxing movement that you can incorporate into your life and into fighting is the pivot. Very simple. On the ball of your foot, on your lead foot, just going to pivot. You can go back and forth. You can switch, switch. Do that 10 to 20 times. The next more advanced pivot, which is used in, say, judo or aikido, will be you're going to take your right foot, you're going to step it forward and to your left, and then you're going to swing your back foot back. And to get back, you can start with your left foot, step forward into your right, and come back. So this is another one that we can do switching directions. So I'm going to take my left foot, and I'm going to step back and to the right. And with my right foot, I'll swing back and to the left and end up back in the same position. Forward, we can do 5 to 10 times. On each side. Back, we can do 5 to 10 times on each side. And that'll build up your ability to pivot. Now we're going to do a more advanced pivot. We're going to get in our horse stance, or regular horse stance. We're going to assume the forward position, or boxer position, fighting position. We're going to take our front foot, our lead foot, and we're going to twist it almost to the rear. And then we're going to take our back foot and come around to horse stance. And now we've got a new lead foot. We're going to take our lead foot and twist it to the back. And then turn and horse stance. Now this is a turn that can end you up this way or this way. So I'll show you going the other way. I'm going to take this lead foot, I'm going to tweak it backwards or twist it, and I am going to bring this other one here. Like I said, I can end up here facing forward, or I can turn and face backwards. Do that one 5 to 10 times on each side. If you need to see it again, front foot, back to horse stance. And let's try to get back to horse stance and not really wide or not really thin. Our next one is another spin, but we're going in the other direction. So we're going to take our horse stance, we're going to assume our forward or our fighting stance, and as we pivot our lead foot out, so if this is my left, so I'm going to pivot it to the left, I'm going to swing this foot close to that skinny horse stance, and then my now back foot is going to come across, and I'm going to be facing the other way, or again I can face this way. Going the other way, I'm going to take my lead foot, I'm going to turn it to the right. As I swing my body around, I'm going to get on that skinny horse, and I'm going to bring this foot back to horse stance. If we get wide in that one, you can get kind of off. So if you get wide, see how my legs are kind of tweaky here. Let's see here. If you need to see it again, I'm going to spin into horse, skinny horse, and then I'm going to bring this back foot back to regular horse. Going the other direction, I'm going to spin and back to regular horse stance. An easy walking practice we can do to find our horse stance and stay balanced is to take a step and then just slightly pivot into horse stance, and then take a step, slightly pivot, take a step, slightly pivot. Again, I'm going to take a step, slightly pivot, step, slightly pivot, back into that shoulder width horse stance. Now here is a variation on advancing walking movement. So we can start in wide horse stance. We don't have to quite get super wide, but we can if we want. We can even start in regular horse stance, and you're going to walk in an L fashion. It's almost a zigzag. So I'm going to take my right foot, I'm going to bring it into my left at a straight angle, and then out at a straight angle. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my left foot. I'm going to bring it up in a straight angle and out, making an L. And I can bring it back and forward. And then this one will be forward and out. And it is pretty much the same going backwards. In, out, back, out, in, back, back, out. Practice that 5 to 10 times each direction. And then a smoother, more arcing version of this would be the crescent. And you just take your, say, right foot and crescent it out. Crescent, crescent, crescent. And going backwards would be the same. Crescent, 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 crescent. Two very easy versions. All right, before we go on to these next movements, we're going to have to go over a few stances, and they'll prepare us for these movements, and we'll be moving in between a couple of these. And to start off, we're going to get into our wide horse stance, and remembering that karate movement, or that karate stance from earlier, we're going to try to keep that this time now, where our fists are at our hips and our shoulders are drawn back. And the first thing we're going to do is go into bow and arrow stance, which some of you might recognize as warrior pose, but for these movements we're going to call it bow and arrow stance. And what we're going to do is we're just going to draw or slide our foot out, and this is bow and arrow stance or warrior pose. You can walk it back in for a more forward look, sinking our weight down into that center that we talked about earlier. Our balance, or our weight, is coming down the middle. I'm wearing socks, so I'm getting a little slippy slidey. Trying to make our thigh, or our quads, or our quad parallel with the floor. Chest up, balance good. Go back into that other side. Same thing. Bow and arrow or warrior pose. Balance is good. Chest is up. And back up. Our second pose is cat stance, which is a very easy one. You're just going to stand on, say, your back leg, one leg or the other. Most of your weight will be on that leg. Knee slightly bent and up on your toe. Toes barely touching the ground, like I can still stay very solid if this leg isn't touching it or this foot isn't touching it all. Same thing on the other side. Foot, hardly any weight on that front foot. Next will be retreating squat. And retreating squat will just be just what it says, and you can even slide that foot out a little more, get more balanced. Again, weight is in that core, about 3 fingers down from the belly button and 3 finger widths in. And just relaxing that weight down. If you can't get down really far right away, don't worry about it. Some of us can get very far, some of us cannot. And we just work with what we have. We'll go the other way, retreating squat. Socks make it a little easier to adjust. And again, some of it, like this side, I can't get down as far as on the other side, and that's okay. Next is scissor stance. For scissor stance, just have your foot, say, perpendicular to the camera. This back foot will be behind and up on the balls of your feet. And all your weight is coming down evenly, or as evenly as you can get it for now, on the ball of your foot, the ball of your back foot, and the flat of your front foot. Other side. And that's kind of an example of how you can really start to work on your balance and improve your balance, move around within these. Hanging horse stance is another easy one. Go into your horse stance and just bring your foot up to your knee level or higher. Your foundation foot or your pillar foot is, or your knee is slightly bent. All weight there in your core. Same on the other side. Knee is slightly bent. Weight is in your core. You're just hanging that foot there. And then we have inward stance, which is a take on that stuff. You're in your horse stance. Weight is even. Weight is in your core. Hips are parallel to the floor. Chin is parallel to the floor. And just tweak your feet in. And that's inward stance. And from there, we're going to go into some movement. And you're going to do these about 5 times on each side. So we can start off with bow and arrow stance. And we're going to go in from bow and arrow stance into cat stance. And go back out into cat stance. Back out into cat stance. We're going to do that about 5 times. Again, on each side. Go out into cat stance, out into cat stance. And you can do that one about 5 times, 10 times if you're more advanced. Now we're going to do advancing scissor squat. So you're going to start in your horse stance and you get sideways. I'm going to get sideways, you don't have to. You're just going to take this back foot and you're going to bring it up in the hanging horse stance and drop it perpendicular to the camera if you're me. And you're going to get up on the ball of your back foot. And all of your weight is going to be evenly distributed between both feet. You'll come back and come back again to look at this from the side. It looks like this. You'll come up into horse stance, going the other way, hanging horse, dropping that foot, and getting up on the ball of that foot, weight evenly distributed in that core, shoulders up. 5 times on each side, 10 times if you're very strong. That one's got a lot of burn to it though, so 5 times is a good place to start. And then the opposite of that one is retreating scissor squat. So you'll start in your horse stance and you'll squat in a retreat. Hanging horse stance, foot down, facing the other way. Same on this side. If I was facing this way, foot would come up and over. Back to horse stance, hanging horse, dropping down into retreating scissor squat. This is one too where I can demonstrate to you like how you'll be able to start moving around. Improves your balance quite a bit, these different steps that I'm showing you. Then last but not least is that L walk that I showed you earlier into bow and arrow. Again, 5 times on both sides. I'm Coach Brian, and this is my channel, Northwest Elite Spirit. Thank you for letting me share with you today. Go ahead and give this a like. Try this out a little bit. Comment below and tell me how it goes. Share this video with your friends and family, and subscribe.